Have you ever been to another city?
Oh, that's fine. No, we can wait. We'll wait until he's ready. We don't need to wait for her, but as long as he's ready, whenever he's ready to go for the live stream. Hey, Mel, how will I know when he's ready for the live stream? Oh, it is ready. Okay. Okay, excellent.
I'd like to call this June 16th, 2025 public hearing of the Planning Commission to order. The purpose of the meeting is to hear a presentation of the St. Louis County 2050 and Equitable Sustainable Comprehensive Plan. Can we call roll, please?
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Ms. Hart, Ms. Hancock,
Here.
Mr. Bedell,
Here.
Mr. Fagan,
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the St. Louis County Planning Commission public hearing. Tonight, we will hear a presentation of the draft for the St. Louis County 2050 and Equitable and Sustainable Comprehensive Plan. I am Keith Taylor, Chairman of the Commission. In addition to the other members of the Planning Commission, I would like to introduce to my right, Jacob Trimble, the Director of Planning and the Department of the planning staff. I hope you've been able to visit the project team and review the St. Louis County 2050 website on your way in tonight, and that you've picked up a copy of tonight's meeting guidelines. The guidelines describe the order in which we will hear the speakers tonight. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker card. If you speak, please give your card to me as you approach the podium. If you do not choose to speak, please put your card on the table outside the chambers. The card includes a QR code that you can scan to subscribe the Planning Commission agenda. By doing this, you will be able to access a copy of the Commission's recommendation on the St. Louis County 2050 when it goes to the County Council. The Commission will not make a recommendation to adopt the St. Louis County 2050 this evening. The Commission Comprehensive Planning Committee will take action on a recommendation from the Planning Department at their meeting on June 30th, 2025. Additional comments, letters, and petitions submitted to the Department of Planning within the 2 weeks of this meeting by June 30th, 2025 will be distributed to the committee in their agenda packet. Written comment can be sent via email to St. Louis STLCO 2050 at stlouiscountymo.gov. The committee will forward a recommendation to the full Planning Commission on the July 7th, 2025 for action. The Planning Commission's recommendation will then be forwarded to the County Council, who has a responsibility to adopt the county's general plan. The meeting will observe the following guidelines. The project team will present an overview of the St. Louis County 2050 and walk through the contents of the plan. The Commission will then be able to ask questions and raise points to be addressed by the project team. Then the public attendees will have an opportunity to speak. Speakers will be allowed 2 minutes. Please keep your remarks brief and avoid repetitive or seconding presentations. The Commission may ask questions of any speaker. After all speakers have spoken, the project team will return to the podium, answer questions, and address points raised by the other speakers. We will now hear the presentation of the draft of the St. Louis County 2050 and Equitable and Sustainable Comprehensive Plan. Director Trimble, would you like to open the meeting with some remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. What I want to let this group know that's here this evening is that what you're going to see tonight represents nearly 2 years of work that has been conducted by the Department of Planning, but not just the Department of Planning, by my colleagues and my teammates here at St. Louis County Government. This is the first time that St. Louis County has conducted this type of planning process in more than a generation. And it represents a significant opportunity for St. Louis County to create the communities that all of our residents want to be living in, and that we can tackle the challenges, which are quite large, facing St. Louis County. But I am an eternal optimist, and I believe that we have all the tools at our disposal here in St. Louis County to be a growing, thriving, and vibrant place. And one of the good places to start is to have a good comprehensive plan that tells you where you've been and where you want to go. So with that, I'd like to welcome our project lead, which is Deputy Director Mel Wilson from the Department of Planning, as well as the project manager from AECOM, Stephen Duong, to the podium to introduce yourselves, introduce the team, and kick us off, guys. I'm really excited. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. We're very excited as well. As Jacob stated, I'm Mel Wilson. I'm the Deputy Director here in the Department of Planning.
Stephen Duong with AECOM, Project Manager. Behind me is Daniel C., Lead Project Support.
So as Jacob said, we're really excited to present basically every piece of STLCO 2050, an equitable and sustainable comprehensive plan to you tonight. What I want to lead with is why an equitable and sustainable comprehensive plan is baked in as our tagline for the plan. It is really important for us to not have equity and sustainability as chapters in the plan, but for them to really permeate every piece of analysis and every recommendation that is included in this plan. That way the impacts can be lasting and can be felt by all residents in St. Louis County. So that was very important to us, and I hope that you can see that effort throughout the entire plan. So to sort of set the stage, we're going to go over some of the background process, what comprises a comprehensive plan. Then we will walk through the actual pages of the plan, which you'll see lives as a website. And then we'll take questions and statements from the commission before we hear public comment tonight.
So for those of you who might want a refresher, or those in the audience who want a brief description of, we're using the term comprehensive plan, also known as a general plan in other spaces. What is it exactly, and how is it a little bit unique and different from other plan documents? The first is that it is a holistic and comprehensive document, but it's also in some ways a good metaphor for thinking about it as a platform for us to investigate where we've been and what are the major potential obstacles we have in front of us to prevent us from going where we want to go. And that means we have to not only look at different areas of the county in a silos, such as open space or infrastructure, but really importantly, we have to look at how they come together and work together to impact our daily lives and the county's future. So what the comprehensive plan is really doing is it is looking at the relationship between all these different systems and policies and ideas, and then it gives us a way to self-identify what can we do about it and how do we define what that is, what do we actually do to fix those issues. So when going through this process, we did a lot of analysis. We'll go into it a little bit later, but we started from a perspective of where we want to go and what would we say is a really successful outcome for this plan in the time horizon we're looking at, 2050. And so we've chosen sort of 5 key areas that we want to say these are the outcomes that we want to achieve. Safe and thriving communities, equitable growth and opportunity, fiscally responsible infrastructure, housing options for all, and strong and healthy residents. You heard a little bit about this in prior presentations and meetings. You're also going to hear a little bit about it in a video we have. But I think that the main thing is instead of thinking about the comprehensive plan just explicitly as a land use plan or something similar to that, thinking about it as a much more holistic document of which many different strategies all build up to a singular goal. So the overall process, we began about, I think, 18 months ago now, doing a very rigorous diagnostic investigation over the county, but also a little bit of the region. We asked questions, we did a lot of data analysis, both qualitative and quantitative. We worked with a lot of different stakeholders, and where we ended up is a space where we could, I think, in a really confident manner say we have a good handle for what we think are some immediate or long-term obstacles. And specifically, we started to identify areas where we think we can make an impact. One of the priorities and the areas of emphasis you'll hear us talking a lot about this comprehensive plan is that we know that resources aren't unlimited out there. So one of the things we really took on ourselves was to identify high impact policies and priorities. We're going to talk a little bit about that later, but there are a lot of recommendations in this plan, but so much of our middle effort was working with different partners and stakeholders to find alignment on things that can really move the needle. Finally, we pull those all together into different actionable strategies, and we assemble it into the comprehensive plan that you all are hearing about today.
All right, so now we're really going to go through the plan page by page, but to kick it off, we're going to play a short video that we think really summarizes the goals and the outcomes that we're looking to achieve here.
Have you ever been to another city and thought, why doesn't St. Louis feel like this?
Have your kids and grandkids moved away and never looked back?
Why is it that you have to drive everywhere in St. Louis County?
To tackle challenges like these, local governments need a clear strategy. That's where a comprehensive plan comes in. A comprehensive plan looks at where we are, where we've come from, and creates a roadmap for where we want to go. STLCO 2050, an equitable and sustainable comprehensive plan, is the blueprint for creating lasting positive change in St. Louis County. The plan aligns and generates policies to produce 5 achievable outcomes.
Safe and thriving communities.
Equitable growth and opportunity.
Fiscally responsible infrastructure.
Housing opportunities for all.
Social and environmental resilience.
But first, we have challenges to face. 5 key issues represent the challenges that we must overcome to reach the future we've envisioned.
The population of St. Louis County hasn't grown in 50 years. Other metro areas that used to look up to us, cities like Miami, Atlanta, Houston, Seattle, have now outgrown and continue to outpace us.
Even though our population hasn't grown, development keeps spreading west. This means that the increased cost of maintaining miles and miles of roads, pipes, and wires is being paid for by the same number of taxpayers since 1970.
Another major challenge is the mismatch between the skills of St. Louis County residents and the jobs available. Some people take jobs below their skill levels or leave to find better opportunities. In the county, there are many retail and service jobs, and people from outside the area often commute in to help meet that demand.
And for those who want to move here, we don't have the housing options they need. More than 80% of the county's land is taken up by single-family homes on large lots. There's a shortage of smaller, more affordable options like duplexes and townhomes that appeal to young professionals and smaller households.
And some communities face the hardest hits. Areas of the county such as Lime, Castle Point, Spanish Lake, and Wellston, who are most susceptible to adverse weather events and hotter summers, are the same communities dealing with vacancy, housing affordability, and barriers to stable job opportunity.
The challenges we face in St. Louis County are big, and they're all connected. From housing and transportation to extreme weather and equity, these issues overlap in many ways. That's where STLCO 2050 comes in. This plan offers a roadmap for the future with about 200 recommendations to help us move forward. We've grouped them into 5 big focus areas. Think of them as buckets, each one filled with ideas to help guide decisions and shape a stronger, more connected county.
The first policy bucket is inclusive economies, and it's all about opportunity. It focuses on creating spaces where people can earn a good living and making sure everyone has fair access to jobs, resources, and economic growth.
Another policy bucket is complete communities. Here we're talking about building strong, connected neighborhoods across the entire county. That means housing, jobs, public spaces, transportation, parks, you name it. Everything that helps a community thrive.
The sustainable infrastructure policy bucket is the behind-the-scenes stuff we all rely on. Think roads, transit, utilities, even trees and waterways. The plan focuses on keeping these systems strong, reliable, and affordable into the future.
Next is responsible growth. Growth is good, but it has to be smart. This bucket looks at where and how the county should grow with clear standards to make sure new development is high quality and built to last.
Another policy bucket is leading the region. St. Louis County plays a big role in our region's future. This part of the plan is all about strengthening partnerships, leading by example, and working together to make St. Louis County 2050 a success.
Together, these 5 buckets give us a strategy for building a better future for everyone in St. Louis County. As Opportunity Central, St. Louis County has all the tools we need to achieve our goals. STLCO 2050 is a vehicle for reaching that destination in a way that includes all of us, for our community today and our communities in the future. Check out stlouiscounty2050.com for ways to get involved and add your voice to STLCO 2050.
Okay, so for the next little bit, we are going to be walking you all through the actual comprehensive plan website. One of the first things I want to mention that this is a fully digital plan. Why are we doing a fully digital plan? A couple key reasons. The first is that it allows us to provide a lot of information out into the public and allow people to very quickly identify or prioritize exactly what they want to really investigate or learn more about without necessarily having to read a much larger paper document in front of them. The other thing is it also makes this information a lot more accessible and transparent because we're able to embed a lot of interactive information into the comprehensive plan that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to do on paper. So this lets other people follow our journey along with us in some ways by us showing our work, showing the data points, showing our public engagement results so that people can kind of see how we went from A, B to C. So for us, this website will be a really significant repository of not only the final plan recommendations, but everything that came along with it during the process.
So this plan was produced by St. Louis County, but this truly is the community's plan. We did a lot of work over the past year and a half to make sure that every piece of background information, every recommendation we make here really sits right with the people who live, work, and play in St. Louis County. So we did so many events where we popped up at existing fairs, festivals, farmers markets, et cetera, to meet people where they are, to hear about them, what they love about St. Louis County, what keeps them here, what makes them think about leaving. So we did several community events where we popped up. We also did stakeholder interviews and stakeholder presentations with community organizations, nonprofits all throughout the year. We ran several focus groups where once we did this data dive, we wanted to make sure that that data sat right with some of our technical experts throughout the community. And then most importantly, we had a really strong steering committee that helped keep us in line and help make sure that we were producing something that they felt was implementable and impactful. So then as Stephen explained what a comprehensive plan addresses, I'll tell you some of the things that it doesn't address. This is St. Louis County's plan for what we want county government, how we want to operate moving forward. This does not replace the comprehensive plans that are produced and adopted by the municipalities. Every municipality in St. Louis County retains their zoning authority. This would be a guiding document for all of us to look to, but this does not tell the municipalities what to do by any means in terms of their jurisdictional authority. And then I would like to pull on a thread that Jacob mentioned. This plan is really important because it really addresses a type of work that the county is not engaged in fully in more than a generation. So we're really excited to have a vision that is crafted and aligns with the community of today and will feed the community of tomorrow, if you will. As I stated about the municipal plans, this document does not replace any other work done by St. Louis County. Instead, it's a platform for us to build more successful and impactful work on. This plan will align with works done by our different departments, the Parks Master Plan, the Community Health Improvement Plan, et cetera. And then further, this plan really impacts county residents through any level of life in visible and invisible ways because it will guide county operations, the allocation of our resources, our budgeting decisions as we move forward. Stephen talked a little bit about the lifespan of STLCO 2050 up until this point, but once this plan is adopted, that's really just the beginning. We will move into implementation right after adoption, but as we go through the work we've set out in front of us, we will constantly be analyzing how it's going, addressing any new issues that come up, updating our information, updating the data that feeds some of our policy recommendations. So we would be gearing up for the first update of STLCO 2050 in the year 2030 and would update it every 5 years, every subsequent 5 years as stated by the county charter. So as stated in the video, and I won't belabor it too much, there are really 5 key issues that have kept St. Louis County where we are today. They all feed each other and they all stand alone in a way. As stated, we have an issue with population stagnation. This region hasn't grown substantially in over 50 years. However, we continue to build and develop and move west and move south, which creates more and more infrastructure needs for the same taxpayers to pay for. So that immediately causes issues with St. Louis County's ability to think about more transformative change. If we're stuck in taking care of what we already have, how can we think about more impactful and different ways of doing things? We also have an issue with a job skills mismatch. Our residents are skilled. The people who live in St. Louis County have skills and have valuable passions and desires, but our job mix, our economy that exists here doesn't align with the skills of our residents. Further, we are missing out on new residents because we don't have the housing options that they're looking for. As Summer stated in the video, over 80% of land in St. Louis County is developed with a single family home on more than a quarter of an acre lot. We don't have what we would call the missing middle housing, townhomes, duplexes, fourplexes that align with people's needs during different parts of their life or different household sizes. What we also experience is while St. Louis County, the Midwest, is generally thought to be more affordable in terms of housing, that exists for homeowners, but we have a huge issue in St. Louis County where renters are more cost burdened than homeowners. So if we have decided that homeownership is a vehicle for a middle-class life and stable neighborhoods, we're blocking many potential homeowners from getting to that point. And then all of this is felt deeper and harder in certain areas of the county, areas with higher rates of poverty, lower rates of educational attainment, or where these first 4 issues are then felt even deeper and have even more ripple effects.
In both the video and Mel, we referenced, these 5 key issue areas, but we fully recognize that there's more than just these 5 key issue areas. So on the website, we are making completely public all of the data analysis that we went through. That is called the existing conditions report. That is effectively 5/6, including an introduction, dedicated website that shows interactive maps, data analysis, narratives that explain our work and our land thinking that allowed us to work through all these very issues, but also come to a place where we can say, we think these 5 issues are the ones that we have to most pressingly deal with. Those 5 existing conditions websites are organized by housing and people, economic development, land use and development, transportation and infrastructure, and open space and environment. And when you go on these websites, you'll see a lot of content on the side. You'll be able to scroll through, but also interact with a lot of different maps in order to dive really deeply into the work that we've provided. And so we encourage everyone in the audience, in the public, to go through this, because we know that not only is this work important for the county, one of the main reasons we wanted to make this great repository is to allow this work to serve as a launching pad for other partners and stakeholders to build upon. So while we were able to take a look at a lot of different issues, by having this work available in public and interactive, other parties, other regional stakeholders, other nonprofits and partners can use and build on the policy and analysis we've done and take it in even more specific directions, depending on what area an organization may care about. So we're really excited about our ability to only help the county here, but also help all our partners with their own agendas and their own projects.
One thing I want to add to what you just said, Stephen, is similarly with the 5 key issues. These 5 key issues don't just impact St. Louis County. They trickle down and are felt by our communities at every level. So that's part of the narrative that we found that all of our partners can latch onto as well.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of recommendations in our plan, but we realize that there has to be a way for us to prioritize and really get our hands around what can we do about it, what can we do in the short term, and how do we do it with limited resources, financial or other forms of capital. So on the website, we've organized a lot of our policies and articulated something that we call policy co-benefits. What do I mean by co-benefits? What we mean here is that we aren't looking at policies and benefits in a silo. We're trying to see where does, for instance, an economic development policy also help a housing problem, also help a transportation problem. The more co-benefits there are between different areas and policy levers the county has, the more impactful investment into that specific policy can and will be across the entire county. So you have on the website here an articulation of how we viewed the various issues and areas of influence that the county has, how they overlap, and how they can also, really importantly, work together to achieve noticeable and significant improvements in the county, but while not also spreading our efforts across 100 different, isolated, siloed policies. How can we make these things really work together? So that's what we mean by policy co-benefits.
And then just like we have limited financial resources, we understand that the county and especially the planning department can't implement and achieve this vision alone. So knowing that we have a lot of great partners and organizations who are already doing a lot of amazing work that we can partner with. A lot of it is about partnering with the right partners at the right time. Not every partnership is necessary for every recommendation, but knowing that we have a great web of relationships that have existed, that we've been working really hard to strengthen over the past year and a half, and knowing that we have a really good team moving forward in order to make this happen.
So we've talked a lot about the various numerous policies in the document. What do they actually look like? So when you're on the website, you'll be able to peruse several different tabs at the top, but also go into specific web pages that explain a policy recommendation. Those pages will articulate what is the problem we're trying to solve. What do we think is the underlying issue that causes that problem, and what might get in our way? And then it then transitions to, okay, what do we do about it? How can we find resources to it? At what scale? Is it countywide? Is it local community? What scale is that policy able to intervene and help in? and lots of other information that really provides a blueprint that says, if this is something we want to do, this is who I need to call for help. This is where we might go look for resources. This is who it benefits, and this is how we might approach implementing this actual policy. It comes with a lot of information. We've made it as graphical as possible so that other partners also understand our work. You'll notice that one of the other benefits I keep mentioning about the digital plan is that we want other partners to be able to look at this website and understand what the county hopes that they can achieve with us. So it's a two-way street. We want to be able to articulate our vision and our aspirations while also making it very clear to our partners, and they have a clear understanding of what we'd like to work on together and what manner we work together. Another element is that on the website, it does make convenient because we have so many recommendations in this plan. There is a search function, and when you go into the search function, you can look it up by key issues and other words in these policies so that if you only care, let's say, for housing affordability at a particular moment, you can very quickly identify the policies that reference housing affordability or are directly related to that issue at hand.
So a big part of the comprehensive plan is about the built environment and what our vision for St. Louis County and the various communities within it look like over the next 25 years. So what we have done is we're using a place types approach, which is essentially the mix of uses and the built form that create a character of a space rather than just the permitted uses or the use type. So I'll scroll through our place types here. We have 15, and you can see that they generally increase in intensity as you move through them. Our most common place type that exists in St. Louis County now would be the suburban residential place type. I'll call that out, as well as I want to call out the traditional neighborhood place type, which is your more truly traditional gridded residential block with various types of single family, 2-family, 3-family residences, excuse me. And then I also want to call attention to the mixed use corridor and node. This is, as it sounds, a mix of residential and non-residential uses, but also at a scale that supports modes of transportation other than the automobile. Places where the density of mixed uses is enough that people can walk or bike or get there to or from there with a transit trip. And then moving through, you can see our commercial and generally our industrial place types. So when we created the future place type map, which I'm going to show next, we did a lot of testing of different concepts. If we change the built environment from residential to commercial, what kind of change does that make? We ultimately did 8 different scenarios throughout all of St. Louis County to test what different changes, where they turn the needle, how they address our 5 key issues, and ultimately painted, if you will, our future place type map based on that. What we also did was looked to our municipalities' available comprehensive plans and their future land use maps in order to build on the visions that they've already identified for their communities. So here is the existing place type map. This is what we've identified the built environment of St. Louis County now to be. You can see there's a lot, as I said, of the suburban subdivision, and you can see that the traditional neighborhood place type does exist along the innermost rings of the county. You can see our commercial corridors and our industrial areas shine through pretty well. And then here is the future place type map. So as I said, we've tried to build on a lot of the visions and the plans that have already been identified in the county. For instance, you can see here, this reflects what the city of Chesterfield has identified for downtown Chesterfield, the former mall site. This area here reflects the Wildwood Town Center and the land use proposals by the city of Wildwood. Some of the main changes I want to call out are the expansion of the traditional neighborhood place type. This is essentially a depiction of what the 200 policy recommendations would create. This is a visualization of the built environment we find would help solve our 5 key issues. So an expansion of the traditional neighborhood place type would solve and move the needle on a lot of our housing issues. Adding more mixed-use corridors and mixed-use nodes would do similar, but also address some of our job skills mismatch and issues with access to jobs. So the future place type map is intended to show visually what land use changes can do in terms of addressing our 5 key issues.
Mel, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
What's
please.
the color purple representing?
The 2 purple shades are the office and industrial park and the general industrial.
Okay,
They're the 2 industrial place types. Sorry, I didn't expand the legend there. Thank you.
So the land use, future land use map is one part of the broader story. If you want to think about our recommendations, in a more organized format. How do you get to that future place we're talking about? We've organized our policies into 5 policy buckets. And they are intentionally a little bit different than just traditional categories because we recognize that it's not enough to think about policy in terms of a traditional silo like transportation or housing. It has to be a little bit more well-rounded in order to pull in its relationship and influences to other parts of the county. So for instance, one of our policy buckets is inclusive economies. We say inclusive economies because we don't want to have a conversation that's too biased around, let's just say, economic development, business attraction. We really want to bring home the point that we want to talk about building an economy that works and elevates everyone. The same with sustainable infrastructure. We all know that we need more infrastructure, we need more water, sewer, roadways, but the reason why we talk about it as sustainable infrastructure is we realize, as was said in the video, that these infrastructure elements cost money. And we have to find a way to grow in a way that allows us to deliver the infrastructure for the long term, not necessarily burden ourselves with a debt 20, 30 years from now, generation now, that we're unable to recoup. That would not be a sustainable infrastructure policy. That would just be building for the sake of building. So you can see how that ties into responsible growth. And ultimately, our last big policy bucket underpins a lot of this, leading the region. The policies in here really highlight the fact that the county is a major influence in the entire region. If it has the opportunity to exert as its influence as a responsible kind of primary actor, other parties will follow. And so while that helps underpin all these good policy buckets, each one of them by themselves also is meant to reflect the idea that we need partners and we need to be able to look beyond individual silos or ideas and really start to think long-term how they all build together.
So then every policy recommendation does have a policy bucket that it falls into, but what I want to call attention to is how we've organized the policy recommendations. They reflect what policy buckets a recommendation falls under, what key issues are addressed, and which of the sort of traditional planning topic areas are addressed. So once we've allocated those sort of attributes to every policy recommendation, we can see that some turn the needle more than others. As Stephen was saying, this is very important because of the limited resources and capacity that our region does have. So the more of these icons that a recommendation has, the more transformative it is. So this page shows the most transformative recommendations from every policy bucket. I'm going to highlight one from each policy bucket. So from inclusive economies, we have a recommendation about rezoning our commercial corridors to promote mixed-use development. This is important because this is a lot of the ways that people experience St. Louis County as they drive through our commercial corridors. It's important because it affects housing options, it affects business and economic development, and it's also something that we can partner with different local governments to work on. There are a lot of county roads that we maintain, but maybe we don't have the land use control. How do we partner with our municipal partners in order to make this change throughout all of St. Louis County? We also have a recommendation about aligning with other planning efforts. So if the Department of Transportation does a thoroughfare plan, how can we align our recommendations for land uses around those roadways to create more of the desired outcomes we're looking for? How do we align our plan with the long-range transportation plan of East-West Gateway, our our metropolitan planning organization? These alignments are very important because they allow us to use our resources more effectively and in a more lasting way, but allow us to leverage our resources to get more funding from state, federal, and private partners. From sustainable infrastructure, we have a recommendation about community scale reforestation and wetland restoration, starting with county properties. So as we discussed, thinking about infrastructure not as only roads, pipes, and wires, but as our tree canopy and our waterways. How can we use those natural elements to reduce the cost of maintaining that infrastructure and also have additional ecological co-benefits? From leading the region, I want to highlight this recommendation. As Stephen said, the county is a really big force in the region, and we need to act like it. So one of the recommendations we have is for St. Louis County to conduct a vulnerability and displacement study. That way, when extreme weather events or disasters occur, we know how to bounce back. We're prepared. We know what areas are more vulnerable, where our resources need to be focused. So we're ready to answer these tough questions and make these tough decisions when the time arises. And then the recommendation I want to highlight from Responsible Growth is a very implementation-focused recommendation about holding semi-annual comprehensive plan working sessions. So bringing our implementation partners together to check in on how things are going, seeing what sort of roadblocks we may be hitting, identify ways that we may need to pivot or seek other resources. So all of these recommendations, as Stephen said, tell us where, what the timeline is, who the partners we need to bring to the table are, and funding options. What to do if we're overperforming, what to do if we're underperforming. So a lot of work has gone into every single one of these recommendations so that we can really hit the ground running and start creating those 5 desired outcomes. Let me go back to the home page. So in summary, this is really ambitious. I think as Jacob said, we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and there's a lot that we can do with this plan. This is Opportunity Central, and we do have all the resources and can create all the resources we need in order to implement this to create a vibrant and prosperous community all across St. Louis County. So we're really excited to dig in and answer any questions the commission has and any ideas and questions that the public has. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to you for any Q&A.
Very good. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Loretta?
I always have questions or comments. Yay, that was excellent. Excellent, excellent, excellent. The comp plan looks good, what you prepared. Municipalities, you talked about using comp plans from other municipalities. About how many did you receive or look at?
We looked online for the available comprehensive plans.
Well, no, many of them are outdated.
Oh, there are several that are outdated,
Yeah.
sure. I think we looked
Yeah.
at about a dozen that were pretty recent and
Okay.
seemed pretty active.
Okay, and I like what you just said about the vulnerability and displacement study, especially in light of what has just happened in the city of St. Louis. It makes sense. So excellent, excellent, excellent idea. Love that. And I'm gonna sit back and let somebody else ask questions. Those were my comments.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Paula, Ty?
Fantastic job putting this together. I know it's a lot of work.
Well, we really appreciate the collaboration of the full commission and the comprehensive planning committee as well.
The one thing I like to say is I like the fact that, this region, we're somewhat fragmented, and we've tried to come together. So this provides an option of, this is where we're going. You don't have to be a part of that if you don't want to, but we're here to help as well. So I think that's great to try to get everybody going the right direction without forcing them, which that never works, right? So great job.
Thank you.
And I'll just say, I think it gives a lot of organizations, even the ones that you didn't partner with in this plan, some direction for how they could participate and be a part of the solution. Because there's so many people looking, how do we help? And by having this, it really is going to give them some guidance.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Are you going to be the county employee kind of overseeing this moving forward? And is there going to be some sort of a dashboard or a scorecard to see what has been touched? There's 200 items.
Sure.
Is there a way that every 6 months, you said there's going to be a meeting to go over this?
We actually have a recommendation for the county to build a dashboard so that we can track progress, we can track our jobs and housing balance, track funding opportunities, permit data, et cetera. So that is a recommendation of the comp plan to build a dashboard for us to use as we review, but also something that could be public facing even. To your first question, Joel Hensley, our principal planner for long range planning, will ultimately be our implementation czar. So with a lot of support from our really great staff in the planning department.
And may I build on what Ms. Wilson just said, which is that this is, if it is ultimately adopted by the county council, this becomes the county's general plan, which becomes the sort of guidepost for many of the operational decisions that are made over the next generation. And this plan is intended to give county government a strategic roadmap for how to invest its limited dollars in the most impactful ways. So yes, while in the Department of Planning, Mr. Hensley would be leading implementation, this isn't just the Department of Planning's plan. This is the county's general plan, and all departments and all organs of county government will have a role and responsibility in making this vision come to life.
Have the other departments been involved in this process, so they're not going to be surprised with anything about? the plan, does it change a lot of the other departments' direction as far as funding goes?
I wouldn't say totally change, but it's more of how to orient things that we do to make sure that every action, every staff member in St. Louis County takes addresses one of the 5 key issues. And that's what a lot of our work does, but how do we align it and force multiply our efforts? I do want to call out 2 county staff members without which this literally would not have been possible. Paul Kreidler, the budget director, was a huge help in collecting revenue data, expenditures data that informed a lot of our decision making. And then Joe Kalesa, the acting deputy director of the Department of Transportation, has been along with us the entire time, doing similar, providing a lot of information that where the Department of Planning isn't a technical expert. So we had a lot of help along the way. And there aren't any department directors who will be surprised by this plan.
Do you foresee any changes or requests with the county council, I guess, whenever if we propose to adopt it and it moves forward?
We've worked, sorry, I didn't mean to
No, go ahead.
cut you off. We've worked really hard to keep the council informed throughout the process. That way, nothing that they see when the commission forwards their recommendation is surprising to them as well.
Question, just maybe unfair, but by putting this together for 2 years, what do you think is the biggest challenge is there one thing that jumps out at you that if we can get this, then I think everything else falls into place, or?
I have one, go ahead, Jacob.
I wish there were a magic bullet. I wish there were I wish there were just one thing that I could say it's just that easy. From our findings, that there isn't. That these problems are, they're deep, they're entrenched. We didn't get here overnight. And the adage that I wish I'd come up with was, is when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, it's 30 years ago. When's the second best time? It's now. These problems, they defy simple, quick solutions. So a plan like this it's a long-term plan with a whole host of policy intervention recommendations to change the trajectory so that 25 years from now, when our kids and grandkids are, hopefully rooted and living in this region, we can pass the baton to them and say, here, stand on our shoulders and reach higher, go farther, do better than we did.
I'm really excited to see the progression or the progress 6 months, 12 months, 6 years from now, see what has come to fruition from this plan. A dashboard would be really helpful to see that.
Christopher, do you have anything to say?
Nice work.
Thank you.
Very nice work. I want to commend the whole staff
Thank you.
for everything that's went through. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of hours that I know you spent. And I'm glad that the whole commission here has been a whole part of it. It's very important for this county. Everybody that sits on this commission, they do it because we want to go the right direction. And you, this young planning department is heading us that direction. So great job, great job. Any more questions, commission? Okay, if that, I'd like to move this to public forum. Okay, do we have anybody that would like to speak in regards to the plan, in favor of the plan? Come on up here one at a time. Bring me your card right here. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Klemp, and I am the Chief Administrative Officer for St. Louis County Executive Dr. Sam Page. And I'm here tonight to speak on his behalf in strong support of the STLCO 2050 Comprehensive Plan. Ms. Hart, you had some interesting comments earlier asking about the input from the other directors, the other departments. And one of the things that I'm most excited about this plan, there are already things in this plan that we are trying to implement now. The plan has not yet been passed, but we are so excited to basically have a menu of different opportunities that we can take to implement the changes that this plan has already identified. So your question is well taken. Know that the county is already so excited to do this. We're looking forward to all the public engagement. We're looking forward to your input as well, but we're already looking at this. All of our departments, they will not see this as a surprise. They are excited to get to work to have a vision for what St. Louis County can be. Right now, we have an opportunity to lead the region into the future. This plan is the first full rewrite of our comprehensive plan in decades, and it represents an important step forward. The county executive and the county council recognized the need for real leadership and long-term vision when they approved initiating this plan, and tonight shows us the result of that commitment. The planning department, led by Jacob Trimble and Melissa Wilson, along with AECOM, has done a phenomenal job. They've taken a hard look at where we want to be, what's standing in our way, and how we can build a future that works better for everyone. This plan is more than just a website. It is a strategy for growth, economic growth, population growth, and all of the benefits that come with that. We know that for St. Louis County to succeed, we have to grow again. That means attracting new residents, supporting the ones that we have, and creating the kind of communities where businesses want to invest and families want to stay. This plan gives us the tools to do just that. It is also important to recognize how this plan was built. Hundreds of residents have given their input through dozens of community engagements. Their voices help shape what you've seen today. That kind of community engagement matters, and it shows in the final product. On behalf of the county executive, I want to thank the county council for helping to kick off this process, and I want to thank the planning commission for your careful review. Most of all, I want to recognize the incredible work of our planning department. Over the past 2 years, they've put in way more than what their job descriptions asked of them, all in an effort to improve this region for the people who call it home. We encourage you to adopt this plan and help us move St. Louis County toward a stronger, equitable, and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Joe Colessa. I am the Acting Deputy Director for Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Colessa, would you please make sure to fill out one of these cards for us?
Oh,
Gretchen's collecting them. Thank you so
Jacob.
much.
The Department of Transportation and Public Works is enthusiastically in support of the comp plan. Between 1970 and now, we grew our infrastructure, our roadway infrastructure, by approximately 30% with no increase in population. In addition, that infrastructure was a significant portion was built by developers and donated to the government. So in other words, we never had the money to build it in the first place. We certainly don't have the financial wherewithal to rebuild it for the current community. So we have choices: accept decline, everyone pays more, or build growth and opportunity. Bring more people in, bring more jobs in, bring growth, and make this a place that people come to and want to live. This plan is an amazingly thoughtful and thorough approach to meet those goals. And I'm very excited for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Cheryl Milton Roberts, and I live in the Normandy Schools Collaborative footprint. I am the president of the Normandy School Board. I'm a past trustee of Belle Reve Acres, and I've lived in actually 4 of the municipalities that are in the footprint. And I just wanted to say that when I looked at the plan, I was very excited because it looked like it had been given very, very careful consideration, and that literally every single municipality, every single thing that you could think of had been taken into consideration. And so I really, really, really appreciate that. One thing that I would like to do, however, is to ask that as we approach this, that we understand that since it is a plan for the entire county, we really mean the entire county. And that means that we have to have a level playing field. Oftentimes when we as a county try to work together, what happens is that the smaller municipalities kind of get left out. We don't have city administrators. We don't have full-time employees. It's just us volunteering, trying to get things done. So what that entails, what that looks like in my world, is that we're going to have assistance and help to level the playing field and to build capacity within the community and with the people that are going to have to help to make the decisions in our individual communities to make all of this line up and work. Otherwise, once again, what will happen is that we will be left behind, because that's what's been happening for about 40 some odd years that I've been in the area. Things have been developed all along Manchester, for instance. Manchester, if you really look at it, is a mirror image of Natural Bridge, but none of that development and none of that investment has happened there. So we need to build capacity. The other thing is that we really need to change how we communicate. And when I say that, you know, in some of the West County areas and so forth, it's very easy for people to get communication about different things. It's a little bit more intricate when you come into our neighborhoods. So you really do have to make sure that you partner with the University of Missouri St. Louis, with Normandy Schools Collaborative and so forth, So again, we can build communication, we can build trust, and we can build collaboration, and we can build capacity. Because not only do we want to do this, but we want to make sure that we're educating as we do this, okay? The last thing that I'll say is that we think of it all the time, you know, we're all adults, and so we're sitting here and we're talking about what these adults are going to do to make the area better. But we're not making it better for us, we're making it better for the kids. And so what we really also need to be trying to do is to figure out, how do you engage the kids in this process as well? What do they want to see? What do they want to do? And I have a great example of that as a former board president of New City School, because before we did our building and grounds study and so forth, we called the kids in and said, so what do you want to see? What does it look like for you? We hired an architect based upon who the kids liked, okay? That sounds a little bit radical, but we're not building it for us. We're building it for them. So that education and capacity building process has to include them as well. That visioning process has to include them as well. Has to include everybody. And even though everybody may not show up that first time, you can't give up, because there's a lot of distrust. And so the only way to build trust is by continuing to go at it again and again and again and again, and to ensure that everybody is included in whatever it is that you're trying to do. We want this to happen, but we can't be good partners if we don't understand, or we don't have the capacity, or we don't have the time, because larger, more fluid municipalities are able to jump in and do things before we do. So with that, I will say thank you very much. If you've not been into the Normandy Schools Collaborative Footprint, please do come there. We have some of the best housing stock in the entire St. Louis metropolitan area. We are one of the safest communities in the metropolitan area, though people don't like to think that. And we have been hanging in there even when we haven't been supported. And now we feel like we've got a little bit of support, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Tom Applebaum. I'm the Acting Director of Information Technology for the county. But before I started with the county, I worked in sustainability, and I was also on the Parkway School Board. I want to congratulate the planning department for putting together such a great plan. I think that one of the aspects of the plan that I appreciate a lot is, you know, reflecting on what the previous speaker said about communication. Take something that's incredibly complex and breaks it down into digestible components that people can understand, and that they can actually see where it's going to benefit them. I'm a lifelong resident of the county, and I've seen it grow a lot. Some of the problems that are being addressed in this plan were not planned for 50 years ago. And I think that that's the important aspect of this plan, is that it is actually being intentional about how we choose to grow in the future. So I just want to offer my complete support and congratulations for such a great achievement.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Fitzgerald. I'm a lifelong St. Louis County resident. I'm also a disability advocate. And this happens because this was my childhood. My brother, who was born in 1960, he had no safe, accessible place to live, except a nursing home at the age of 40, where he lived out the last 10 years of his life. My dad, a SLU professor of geology, really believed in climate change. He commuted by bike and bus from St. Louis County to SLU for 40 years. In 1996, on his commute, he was killed while trying to cross Clayton-Lindbergh. It took over 10 more years for a crosswalk and crossing lights to be placed at that intersection. I'm asking you to please consider having safe, inclusive communities. Look at universal design, look at accessible housing, look at employment opportunities. Most of our folks with disabilities won't be able to have a car. Design communities with pedestrians, wheelchair users in mind, please. We need safe communities for our folks with disabilities, especially our aging population. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Seth Adams. Hi, everybody. I am speaking on behalf of the entire business community. No, I'm just kidding, I'm not. But I actually am a small business owner. I'm a landowner in Kirkwood. I'm building my first home there. And my business would be exceptionally benefited by this plan. This is to a T how I envision development. This sort of inclusive and exceptionally well-developed plan is exactly what we need as a community, as an environment, as a business community. This is like to a T. I really have to say that this is quite great. To me now, what I'm thinking about is how effectively and efficiently, most importantly, efficiently this can be implemented. This is a really, really good plan. Something like this, the greatest heartbreak in my mind is that it takes 3 years to implement, is that I have to wait to develop the duplexes and the ADUs that allow us to access really inclusive and affordable housing and middle-class housing, is it takes 3 to 4 years to get that done. This is exceptional, and there's no reason to wait. I don't say we got to do it next week. I want to take the time to get it right. But this is done right, and to do it is to do it now. I mean, there really is, we should have planted the tree 30 years ago, but this is exceptional, and there is no reason to wait any further on a plan this good. I cannot wait to see this be implemented. This will be exceptional for all of us. So thank you guys, and thank you for having such an exceptional plan.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Enrique Riojas, and I'm speaking here both as a member of the planning department, although I'm not clocked in right now, and as a person that has moved to St. Louis County, to the St. Louis region very recently. I am exactly that kind of young 20-year-old person that would not usually stay in St. Louis, would not usually want to come here. I went to SLU, and the logical thing for me, if I were to follow everybody else, would be just to leave. Now, I stayed here for my own reasons, for my own goals, but it isn't easy for someone like me to stay in St. Louis, partially because of things like were mentioned that 80% of the land use in St. Louis County is just those massive single-family homes that I frankly cannot afford and don't know when I would be able to afford. You mentioned, Commissioner Fagan, that if there was one silver bullet, what would it be? And there is no one silver bullet, but I think it will be very important to, how should I say this, tackle the hardest things first. Some of the biggest things going on in the comprehensive plan will be the rewriting of the zoning and subdivision ordinance. And to me, that's the most important thing, because that is the legal instrument by which all of this will be able to be accomplished. Now, working in St. Louis County, I get hundreds of phone calls from people that want to develop their property in certain ways, and many of them struggle. And our zoning ordinance at the moment is very much 1960s document, if you catch my meaning. So I'm coming here to recommend that not only this plan be accepted, but that we take an effort to handle the biggest issues first. Seth, I believe, mentioned how the most difficult thing for him is that this will take 3 years. If we can somehow prioritize these biggest issues first and start working on these massive policy changes first, that will have massive dividends down the line. It will make this plan actually have buy-in. I can assure you that there's so many people that I've had calling me about a permit that I've referred them to the St. Louis 2050 plan to tell them, here's a plan for you. Here's a plan where you can put in your input. And I want to share that many people, regular people, want these changes. They have made it clear to me that they want these changes. And I myself would want these changes. As, someone that is pretty new to the region, pretty new to this country, really, I would not be able to be here where I am now if it weren't for the kind of policies that the 2050 comprehensive plan would put into motion. Stuff like missing middle housing, mixed-use, walkable cities, all of that fun jazz. So that is my message to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Bob Lewis. I started my urban planning career in this building, in the planning department. Jacob wasn't born yet, probably. And been a planner now, professional planner now for 49 years. I currently teach at St. Louis University in urban planning. One of my colleagues, it turns out, standing next to me here. Most of my career in consulting, although a couple of years here working for the planning department. I want to first say St. Louis County is big. I think this is a message that Mel was getting across. It's big and should act like it. I've been urging that for a long, long time. It's a leader in this region. It's a leader in this nation. This plan is outstanding. It really is state of the art in many, many ways. And so let's act like it, as Mel just said as well. And enough's been said about that topic. This is really a top-notch plan. My key question, maybe it's advice, is that the long-range planning division or whatever it is of the department needs to be changed in name to plan implementation or something along those lines. It's not planning any, there still needs to be planning going on, but part of that department needs to be building those partnerships, helping those partners and communities, the municipalities, to build that capacity to implement this plan and be part of that plan in that process. So think less about planning and more about getting it done. And that's not an easy task. With that, Jacob, good luck and thank you for this big effort. Maybe Mel's more important though.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Oren Aiden. I am the last SLU person, I guess, for the day. I'm a faculty at St. Louis University, and I lead the DOE Resilience Center at SLU, where we're working on short, mid, and long-term planning for St. Louis City, and also the 24-1 neighborhoods. This is more of a development of methodologies. But I'm not here to talk that much about that project. I just want to state my strong support for this plan, and I'm very much appreciative of the details of the plan that's been shared here and the webpage. I particularly think that the story maps and the data that is behind it that is accessible would make a big difference. One of the reasons I mentioned what I do is right now we're in a phase where we're building these models that can sift through petabytes of data. And we ask questions like, what was so special about London before the Industrial Revolution? What was so special about the Silicon Valley in the 70s that they become this center for attraction, for industries, for jobs, for employment that resulted in further growth. And as we look at these patterns and as we see some of these plans, it's making me quite excited about someone who lives here and also someone who works on this problem. Again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, or evening, sorry. My name is Charles Bryson. I will say that I am not the most eloquent speaker, so that you all don't have to think about, oh, that was a great diatribe. But I do have questions, and I wanted to share them with you. This plan is St. Louis unincorporated St. Louis County plan. And so my understanding, having gone to several of the public meetings and forums and read the document online, it is essential that this plan to be as extraordinary as it's going to be, must find a way to include municipalities. That for the municipalities to begin to dry out and blow away means to some degree unincorporated St. Louis County would do the same. So I urge everyone on the planning body and everybody else in government to also think about the fact that unless municipalities are taken care of one way, shape, or form, you won't have a good finish to this 2050 plan. The other thing is St. Louis County is car-centric. It is woefully car-centric. My day job is with TrailNet, and we track all the crashes and fatalities that happen in both St. Louis City and St. Louis County. Mostly in St. Louis County, it's become pedestrian, which means how does this plan make an effort to reduce fatalities, crashes, and serious injuries by beginning to look at how St. Louis County roads operate, and also looking at how do we get bi-state and Metro more involved in the process. There's so many parking spots that could possibly be a little more pedestrian friendly and more bi-state and Metro driven. And so those are two of the things that I noticed right off the bat. The third thing is the issue of how do we create a plan that and people have talked about this before, the laws in the future will honor the plan. So when county council gets the plan, and when they start to develop housing related to the plan or infrastructure related to the plan, the laws to which they pass those things through represent the plan itself, not a one-off here and a one-off there. And so I would hope that as this body sends a message when it finally passes the plan, there's a note attached. Please stay on task. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have one more speaker.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Erica Edwards. I come to you by way of the City of Pagedale, where I serve as the Vice Chair of the Pagedale Housing Authority. And I just wanted to say that this plan is awesome. One of the things that we struggle with in Pagedale Housing Authority is the availability of housing. Currently, our wait list is over 6,000 families long. And so this plan helps us identify or give us a pathway to how we need to move forward and grow our housing authority in Pagedale. Ironically, we are going to push forward with trying to establish a strategic plan that we'll have coming up in the next couple of months. And this plan will lay out the groundwork of how we need to move forward. So I thank you. I thank them for coming up with this plan and doing all this work. And I'm sure it will help us. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Seems that that was all speakers in favor. Would there happen to be any speakers in opposition or concerns? Okay, thank you very much. Mel, would you like to come up and for rebuttal or any questions there, please?
Okay. I appreciate all the, a lot of thoughtful comment and a lot of support from the speakers tonight. I really appreciate that, especially some of our municipal partners who came tonight. I super appreciate that. I think that the answer to some of the questions is, the answer is here in the room with us. People have come here tonight showing that they appreciate how St. Louis County has taken this stance and stands here as a leader. We already have municipalities reaching out to us. So when this is adopted, will you come and speak with us about how we can align? So the opportunities are there. We just need to pounce on them. But on that same point, it's not for St. Louis County to come to the 24-in-1 and say, here's what you need to do. It's for us to come and say, here's what we're trying to do. How can we partner? What resources do you have? What resources do we have that we can put together to get there better, faster, sooner? To Mr. Bryson's question, yes, this will be this is the future land use plan that will trickle down most directly to the residents of unincorporated St. Louis County, where the county has zoning authority and zoning jurisdiction. But it will be so critical to work with municipalities at the appropriate times, depending on what the county is focusing on, in order to have some synergy there. We are really excited about a lot of the recommendations in St. Louis County 2050 that pertain to active modes of transportation, how to reduce travel distances so that they don't all need to be made by an automobile. So there are a lot of recommendations, excuse me, baked into the plan that address the need for non-automobile transportation. And to Ms. Fitzgerald's point, we have several recommendations that address universal design, and making places and spaces that are accessible to everyone. And I think that that's really important because yes, we need to make spaces accessible for people with different needs. But if you think about something as simple as a curb cut, while that may be a requirement of, the ADA, how many of us also benefit from that ease there? People with strollers, people with walkers, people with a rolling suitcase. So thinking about how actions that are equity-based and impact those with the most need just also benefit everyone in the community. I think that to another point of Mr. Bryson's, it is important for us and the sort of update cycle to make sure that we're staying on track, that we're keeping our word. We don't want to have all of these great ideas and then, I can't put the website on the shelf, so the plan's not going on the shelf. But how do we, hold ourselves accountable and let the partners that we've brought with us hold us accountable is going to be so critical. I rely on the Planning Commission to help hold us accountable too. Let me skim through some of these items. It's all for the kids. We actually had an engagement activity that I think did glean a lot from the youth in our community. We had an activity where we asked people to draw their favorite place. And for us, that's asking, what kind of spaces and places do young people notice that they want to go to when they're not at school and they're not at home? And we got a lot of really great ideas from kids. The library, my dojo, the park, my tree, a lot of sweet things that I think are then really reflected in a lot of our more concrete policy recommendations. And we're going to create the division of getting it done is, I think, what I heard tonight here as well. I think I addressed most of the most concrete questions that were asked tonight.
I want to add one additional thing about the scope of this plan.
Oh, thank you, Jacob.
This plan is St. Louis County's plan, all 523 square miles of it, because the plan doesn't just address land use. It addresses, in many ways, our transportation system, the way that we provide services that will be impacting my friends and colleagues in the Department of Human Services, the way that our Department of Public Health may imagine and think about how there can be, how can we reduce chronic health issues through improvements to the built environment. So there's a lot. This is St. Louis County's plan. And it is also unincorporated St. Louis County's plan. And unincorporated St. Louis County now represents more than 300,000 residents. It's a third of the county. There are more unincorporated residents, or there are more residents in unincorporated St. Louis County than there are now residents in the city of St. Louis. The unincorporated portions of this county absolutely matter. And this is going to be a plan that I think really, really benefits them. But what I really, really like is the way that we're working to build partnerships with the municipalities so that we can, because I've heard it here tonight and we've identified this as a challenge for this region, are the municipalities that don't have the capacity to take this and rewrite their zoning ordinances or sort of wholesale adopt this, is that we will be looking for ways that we can build that capacity through that partnership with those munis. I don't know how that's going to play out right now. I don't have the exact answers, but we have identified that as a challenge, and we are committed to, over the next generation, to seeing improvement throughout all of St. Louis County.
Very good.
Any other questions I can answer from the commission?
No, I just want to comment on Jacob's remarks here and say, just like the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County and throughout the other counties that we're aligned with and group with, and municipalities, we all need to work together to make our whole metropolitan area rise to the top. And that has to be, that has to be the goal for everybody here. So thank you very much, staff, for this presentation. Is there any other questions possibly out there? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. And hopefully you continue your participation in the process.
May I say one more thing, Mr. Chairman? So we are in the middle of our public comment period. We do have a survey on the website, on the homepage here, where you can, as you walk through the plan, give your feedback. we ask questions like, do you understand the vision? Do the 5 key issues and the 5 policy buckets make sense? So if anyone who's come here tonight or who's watching online has not yet had the opportunity, we are accepting feedback through the survey through the end of the month, through June 30th. And I would appreciate any additional feedback folk give us in that venue.
Let me comment on that. I would recommend, if you haven't went online and looked at the plan, give yourself a good hour and go in and navigate through it. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And take that survey. It really is. And if you go down through there and you tab through, you're gonna learn a lot. So thank you very much for participating tonight. Thank you. That it? Okay, I'd like to move for adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. And we are adjourned until, what do we have for July 7th? I
Yes.
believe?
Yes, full commission back on July 7th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.